What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. What is KCGameOn? What can we do to attract more people who are unfamiliar with video games or esports and get them to attend events? How do you get the most out of a video game event as the organizer and a patron? As a streamer or a content creator, how do you promote yourself at an event so people actually give you attention? What are some of the best ways to get involved and support your local esports and video game community? How do you take your event to the next level and make it super awesome for your event goers? Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to episode 39 of the Esports Narrative. I am your host, Spencer Alessi, and this is the podcast that's all about the exploration of competitive video gaming and the passionate communities that make it so exciting. Tonight's guest is Jay Duncan. He is at DYT Network on Twitter. He is a streamer and VIP Director for the KCGameOn. You can find them at KCGameOn on Twitter. We're on Twitch TV/DYT Games for Jay's Twitch stream. He's a streamer, former pro gamer, business owner, and entrepreneur. I am super excited for you all to hear this episode, this chat, this interview I did with Jay. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Super excited to have you here, Jay. Super awesome. I know we're going to talk a lot about a lot of cool stuff. So just appreciate you coming on and taking some time to talk to us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we were just talking about fireworks and all sorts of fun stuff. Shark Tank. We were talking about podcasts, podcasts we listen to. Tons of fun stuff we were talking about just now before this started. But what I really want to know, because you just mentioned before we hit record, you do a lot of different stuff. So I'm curious, just like, what's your story? How did you get into video games? And where were you? How did you fall in love with esports? And how did that come about? I'm really curious to hear that.
Okay, I'll try to give you the full disclosure. I'm very long-winded. But I'm 35 years old. I'm from the Nintendo generation. I remember getting the classic NES system, and I was hooked from a little kid. And I always grew up with a unique personality. Really loved video games and comic books, both. But also really loved sports. I'm a pretty big guy physically, and I played football at some of the highest levels, wrestled, at a national level, did a lot of athletic things. But then that need for competition eventually, it grew. It eventually, related to my video game obsessions as well. I remember being a teenager, like Final Fantasy VII came out, and I felt like it changed my life, on the original PlayStation.
Uh-huh.
And I played Final Fantasy VII so much that I stopped the clock on the game. It goes to like 99 hours, 99 minutes, and 99 seconds or something like that. I stopped the clock on it. Easily put in 200 to 300 hours or whatever into Final Fantasy VII, and just really, fell in love with gaming and how immersive a good game could be with that. I joined the Army straight out of high school in the year 2000. And then all of a sudden, I'm playing video games with friends. I'm the only guy in my unit with like a PC at home. And I'm playing Warcraft 3. And I found this mod called Dota. Obviously, Dota is now one of the largest esports in the world. It's by far the most profitable esport in the world currently. For its competitors, I mean, you can argue semantics on how much money the game has earned compared to other esports titles and so on. But I got deployed to Afghanistan with my unit, came home, wound up having quite a bit of time off, and took a shot at trying to play Dota 1, the original, as competitively as possible. I got lucky, and I found something called the California Premier League, and it was one of the earliest organizations for esports. They had funded tournaments, they had sponsors, they had the whole nine yards. That was an organization that was well put together and way ahead of its time, ultimately causing some of the issues it had down the road, as it was so far ahead that no one would give them the time of day, to recognize what esports really was. But I remember there used to be, the only way Dota 1 had the support was an individual website that had its own blog. Like, I don't know if you remember old message boarding, predating Reddit, predating Reddit and so on and things like that. Well, they would rank players, they would rank teams in there, and then there was always forum discussions going on regarding strategy and how the game was developing, and there was always a reoccurring thread of could Dota be its own standalone game? And so many people are like, no, it's ridiculous, it's not there yet, blah, blah, blah. And I love seeing where that progressed from early 2002, 2003, all the way through. So I gave it a good go. I was in the top 100 of the world in Dota 1. According to those standings, I'm sure I get absolutely obliterated now in Dota 2, but it stayed with me ever since. It just did. Then life kind of takes a hold, and I pursued other professional passions and did a lot of things and lived a very interesting full life, always with that love of gaming in the background. Well, 3 years ago, came in contact with an organization called Kansas City Game On, or KCGameOn, and one event and drank the Kool-Aid, and was just like, I want to be a part of this business. I want to be a part of this industry. Help me help you to grow esports in the Midwest. Let's really focus this. There's not enough esports that are centrally focused. The flyover states of the U.S. need the love, right? So It was something I became very passionate about, and I've been happy with my investment so far over these last couple of years, as we're only a few days away from the largest event we've done. We're expecting 3,000 plus people to come to this event, and we have thousands of dollars in tournament prizes. So I'm really excited.
That's really awesome, and I'm excited to talk to you more about that. But first, I want to talk to you about esports. So esports is exciting, it's growing, it's exploding. What is your take on why it's becoming more mainstream and getting more media attention? Why is it exploding right now, as far as you're concerned?
Well, in my opinion, I feel like it's been building for a really long time. There's just it's been like a subculture, not mainstream, right? I feel like there have been, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people somewhat interconnected into esports, or at least aware of it, but no one ever took it seriously. And then all of a sudden, enough of those people started, the world got smaller, right? Social media made the world a lot smaller. The internet made the world a lot smaller. And that allowed more and more people with similar ideals to connect and then spread that message. So it's just, I feel like it's been on the edge for years, and it's finally starting to tip over now. There are still so many, media outlets that don't take esports seriously, that don't look at it. But when you have people like Mark Cuban, who recognize, he's an entrepreneur and an avid businessman, who recognize, this is a $1 billion+ industry that people are ignoring, and then all of a sudden, in the last 12 months, hundreds of millions of dollars have been poured into esports from professional sports industries. I think people just, finally got hit in the face with it, and were like, whoa, this is really going to happen. This is the real deal. And so now it's starting to just explode, because you get that one right person involved, and it'll just start that domino effect. And I think we're starting to see the first couple rows of dominoes fall in the mainstream social, circles for video games. And I pay attention, and I'm into it. There are numerous celebrities out there. There are people making movies that are very, video game culture centric. I mean, Player One is coming out. There's so many things that from my generation that people have become business leaders and creators and business leaders, or industry leaders, and they're starting to shape that. So it's becoming more and more and more accepted, and it'll be more of kind of pushing out the old ideologies to accept the new. And that's why esports is really there's just been enough of a cultural shift in the world to cause it.
And with that cultural shift, we're seeing a lot of increase in what you're doing with KCGameOn. We're seeing a lot of it just in my own city. I saw something the other day there's a local LAN center. They're putting together a community of people to come together and play in tournaments locally, and then play in a national league. You know, the winners play in a national league, and they're creating this local community around the city to kind of promote the city and like show that they're doing something kind of creative and new with these kids that would otherwise maybe be skateboarding on the street and maybe or maybe not doing things that are not constructive with their time, right? So that's an up and coming thing with what you're doing with KCGameOn. So I'm curious, tell us a little bit about KCGameOn. Tell us a little bit of the backstory and how it came about and what your involvement is with it so far.
Sure. Okay. So it started nearly 15 years ago. It was a couple of guys who worked at a kind of a local IT company here in Kansas City. Just wanted to get together and have fun with their friends, right? Hey, let's form a raid party for World of Warcraft or for like 1 or 2 games specifically. So it started with like 25, 30 people. And that actually lasted for years. They would get together like 4 or 5 times a year and have this little, grouped party, and that just kind of persisted. And then they gave it a name. They're like, hey, we should call this KCGameOn. And it was just strictly a fun thing to do with a pretty particular group of people. Well, after a couple of years, it became more and more prevalent to see this type of activity happening around the country. And I was like, well, wow, that's really interesting. And then DreamHack became a thing in America, right? And I think that really woke some people up when they started seeing 10,000 people go to a LAN at a time, and DreamHack would hold huge concerts, and then they would film music videos there, and they would do all these creative things in DreamHack. So that spurred a lot of people on, and I think that spurred part of KCGameOn as well. And that ultimately was like, well, let's see where we can take this. Like, let's take this small group of 35 plus, 50 plus people and see what we can do with it. I think when I joined the organization 3.5 years ago, they were averaging about 100 to 125 people per quote unquote small event, right? I came in and was like, hey, I'm a streamer. I'm a former professional gamer. This is something I've wanted to be a part of basically my entire life. Is there anything I can do to volunteer and help you out with? Sure, we need someone, you're a big guy, come and carry tables for us. Okay, cool. Start off with the small stuff. Then I'm like, well, hey, I'll cast your Overwatch matches for you. Let's put together an Overwatch tournament, because Overwatch had just come out at that time. All right, cool. Started doing Overwatch stuff, started casting Overwatch games. And it just kind of built from there. And I'm addicted to Twitter. I like Twitch a lot. Obviously, I have my own channel, but I'm not trying to pimp that out. I'm just simply saying, like, I've been into it, so I started pushing them to get into it. Hey, you need to run a full social media account. You need to have Facebook and Twitter and some of these things active all the time if you want more people to come. You need to be shameless in your self-promotion at times if you really want to grow this like an industry or a business. I consider myself a businessman and an entrepreneur, so I try to approach it from that perspective, in addition to, like, I'm having fun, playing games with my friends and doing this. And then it just grew and grew and grew, and now we've gone from like 100 to 125 to over 400 people per small event. And then once a year we do this big event, and this year's big event is going to be massive, and we hope next year to double in size at least. And we're just kind of snowballing with this big grassroots movement. I would have to say our recidivism is amazing. Like, if you come to an event, we're over 80% with people who come back to the next event. When people come, they seem to have a really good time. They seem to enjoy the atmosphere and the other people they interact with, and they come back and they come back and they come back. Well, what happens when they come back multiple times? They tell their friend comes in, he's like, well, I'm going to the next one, I'm going to bring another friend. And that word of mouth growth has been wonderful for us as an organization.
Why do you think that is? Like, what's the attraction to these types of events that is encouraging people to come back?
There's a couple different layers to that. One is maybe exclusivity. being realistic. We're in Kansas City, Missouri. It's the Midwest doesn't offer it doesn't offer some of the avenues for other things to go do. And there are a lot of avid gamers here in the Midwest. There are a lot of professional gamers from the Midwest, and they all want to go west or east to the coast to do things. So if we offer something competitive at a professionally produced level here in the Midwest, they're like, yeah, I'm 3 hours away from there. I'm driving. I'm coming. I'm coming from Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Like, I'm coming, and they'll, Chicago's only like 7 hours away. They'll drive or fly in from Chicago and come to our events. I think that's one of the draws to it is we're kind of the only show in town that's our size. There are other people doing similar things to us, but they're not there yet, right? They don't have the amount of numbers we do yet. So exclusivity, I think, is one reason. The other reason is we work really hard to make people happy. Like, we offer dinner and snacks at our events. So, not a lot of these kinds of events do that for people. Essentially, when you purchase a ticket to a KCGameOn, you're paying for your food, snacks, and the venue for the entire time you're there. You're getting way more than you're putting in, I promise you. So that's one of the reasons a lot of people come back, is they're like, heck yeah, I'm going to go back and get barbecue and some snacks and drinks for 15 plus hours and play games with a bunch of my friends. Then we have talented tournament organizers, right, who organize very fun tournaments. So we'll do Call of Duty and run 144 people through it in under 12 hours. We'll do Overwatch with 10 teams and run that through in less than 8 hours. We'll do realistic double A-lim brackets so people can feel that competitive drive. So if you're the competitive natured gamer, you enjoy how we run our tournaments efficiently and get people taken care of and in and out the door that way. If you're the casual person, you like the food and the atmosphere and like the exclusivity of where you're at, and that seems to draw the more casual people back. And I also would like to think that it's the passion of our staff. We have a small army of volunteers who help us out, and I'm one of 4 people who really put it together, but it's not just the 4 of us by ourselves, right? The people who are involved are committed and passionate about what they do, and we love talking games, and we love talking shop, right? And I think that kind of bleeds over to a lot of people. It becomes infectious to a lot of people, and just like what happened to me years ago, they drink that Kool-Aid and they want to come back, right?
Yeah, because people want to be around people who are positive and like-minded, right? In you said something that I want to just focus in on for a second. You said that you provide more value than you get in return. So essentially the patrons, the people who are coming to these events are getting so much value out of it that they're getting more value than, what they're paying in the ticket or, whatever the cost is to go to the event. And you're essentially, the value exchange is more to them than it is to you as the event or the organizers, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. Every ounce of what we have made over the last, dozen years has gone into the next event. It's all about making it bigger and better and so on. From an entrepreneur standpoint, yes, I would love for this to be a profitable enterprise for the founders and directors and so on. But that's not the primary goal. The primary goal is to create a brand and create an event that becomes like the thing to do when you think of esports in the Midwest. That's the goal. We certainly want to see it get to that next level, but we're not gonna leave our people behind. We want the gamers to enjoy themselves because we're gamers too, right? I'm addicted to gaming myself, so I don't want to have a negative experience for anybody.
It's lifetime.
Mistakes happen, obviously, but yeah, I just want to make it positive for everybody.
Yeah, it's lifetime value, right? In doing what you're doing and doing it for the good of the people attending the event and making it an awesome experience for them and making it 10x what they expected it would be. You're taking it not, I don't want to say at a loss, but you're taking it at face value in the short term to make it up in the long term with the lifetime value that you're creating and the legacy that you're creating in this brand, like you said, is really awesome. And I think that's a really awesome way to do it, because I think it works out. It definitely works out for you in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the four of us. I think that's our goal, is to get it to that point. It just make a good experience for everybody and just have fun. The four of us and many of our other volunteers and people who work alongside us, we get stressed out putting it together because there's so many. It's a logistical nightmare, right? Getting tables ready, doing all these different things, a million moving pieces, and trying to organize everything is like corralling cats.
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, and even though there might be a few small hiccups, when it's all said and done and we pull it off, everyone is so satisfied. We're all just like, oh, it's like all the hard work paid off. We saw 500 gamers through the door, and we gave away this much in prizes and did this, and we made our sponsors happy, we made our gamers happy, we made ourselves happy, and this worked out. It's like such a relief, and it just makes you incredibly happy knowing you accomplished a pretty Herculean task.
Yeah, and what I like about what you said is you're innovating, right? You're not, from what you said, you're not doing what everybody else does. Like, you're running a LAN event, you're running an experience, and that's what it should be. You're creating a unique experience, and you're innovating. The things that you said about the food and the snacks and stuff like that, that's innovating, and I like that you're considering that, because I think a lot of events fall into the trap of, okay, we got to do this because everybody does this. We have to do this because everybody does that. And I like that you're innovating, and it helps attract people to your event. And that is a segue into my next question, which is, what do you guys do? You went from, you said 50 to 100 people to you're going to have, close to 3,000 at this next event in a few days. Like, what are you doing to attract more people? And are those people who are familiar with video games already and esports, or are you kind of trying to market to people who are kind of unfamiliar with it? I'm curious on what you're doing to grow the event and who you're targeting to kind of get them to come.
So being totally honest, we try to target both. I'm very thankful I've gotten to know some professional esports athletes here in the Kansas City area, some professional YouTubers and some professional Twitch streamers who are influencers, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate that they haven't found me to be too thirsty, like come to my events, and they've been willing to either work with me or give me some advice or say, yeah. And they come up to the event and they're like, man, we had a good time. Order more pizza next time, or like get different snacks, or whatever, or like, oh, hey, we need more power in a different room to do this. That constructive criticism is very helpful. And because they're influencers, if they have a good time when they come to the event, then they share that with their following, right? And that helps to grow. And, typically their following is more avid gamers, right? It's going to be people more in tune with that type of, with the industry. What happens often is we'll have people who are avid gamers come to the event and just be like, I never knew this was here. I never knew this was going on in my own backyard. And we have over 80% of our people come back to events. So, they start telling people and they bring people, and then it just keeps happening, right? Other people are like newer casters, people who don't have a very large audience or following, but who are really passionate about what they're doing. Okay, well, hey, we want to give you the opportunity to cast a game or something from our event. We've got 60 people playing Overwatch this week. Do you want to come in and cast an Overwatch tournament? Learn some skills, develop yourself as a whatever, an entertainer or as a streamer or as a gamer. And giving people those opportunities at times is what hooks them. Then the casual people, they'll hear about it from person to person, or they'll see something on Facebook or Twitter. We do purchase advertising on Twitter and Facebook and try to get it out to as many people as we can. But the majority of it is word of mouth. And, you know, someone's going to say, I know you're not that big of a gamer, but you should still come and kind of check it out. It's really neat to see 400 people or 1,000 people or whatever the case may be in one place, all doing the same thing and like really enjoying themselves. You know, there's something infectious about a positive environment, you know, or there's also, you know, like when we do competitive Call of Duty type of stuff, people get heated, but it's in competition. So you may hear someone like, you know, scream like, you suck at somebody else, but it's in that moment of competition. And when it's over, everyone's like, yeah, you know, that energy is really there. Well, that energy hooks the next person as well, you know, especially that casual person. And when they're like, maybe I want to start playing Call of Duty or Overwatch or League of Legends or whatever the case may be. So we try to catch both. Influencers really, really help. They've done a lot for us to get us there. But the word of mouth has done so much more.
Yeah, we're going to have you on the show again. We're going to go into more details of like how you market your local events, because that's something that really interests me. And I think it sounds like you absolutely have your eye on the ball with what's going on with marketing and just the attention and where the eyeballs are right now. So I'm super excited to hear you say that and talk about all the things that you're doing. So I'd like to put together a piece of, you know, maybe an episode or a series of episodes of like, how do you grow your local events? Because I think that would be super valuable for people to hear how a successful group of people are doing that and using the tools of, you know, today and not like old direct mail and, you know, outdated marketing tactics to get people to events and show them how awesome it is. So we'll definitely have to do that again, or do that and go into more detail, because I think that would be really cool. But what I wanted to say is experience. I think that concerts, you know, you don't have to be a hardcore music fan and know everything about the history of a specific genre of music to go to a concert and enjoy it, right? Like you go to a concert for the experience. And I think that's the same thing with these LAN events like DreamHack or the ESL One events. They have all sorts of fun stuff. BlizzCon is a perfect example. Like it's the experience. So I'm curious, it's kind of a two-part question. What do you do as organizers to help people get the most out of the conference, or not the conference, but the event, the LAN event, the gaming experience? How do you help them get the most out of it? And as a fan or as a patron, how do you get the most out of an event like this?
Okay, so there's probably two parts to the organizer piece of it, and then I'll go into like the patron, like, you know, coming to the event. From an organizer standpoint, you have to address two things, especially with the way we market: the competitive side and the casual side, right? The competitive side, man, they may not care whatsoever about the food, drinks, and other stuff that you do. They want to know that you're running an efficient tournament. They want to know that you're utilizing Smash GG correctly, or Battlefy, or whatever type of system and bracketing system to very specifically delineate, this is where you're at, this is the time you have to start, you have this many, you know, rules, or like their guidelines or rules are set in stone. Hey, if you have an internet, you know, outage, you have X amount of time to fix this. You know, like doing those things creates a smoother process. You know, handling that infrastructure side, I have to say, I mean, shout outs to Jason, who is he's like our network and our electrical engineer. The guy's a genius. He helps us resolve so many things. We have top-notch infrastructure because of some of his skills and organization, so that we don't drop, you know, like whole switches, so that we don't drop our internet, so that we don't have power issues. I've been to many other events where there's all of a sudden an 8-hour delay because the power went out, because they didn't do the math on, hey, every PC draws approximately 3 amperes. You put 1,000 of them in one room, you're going to blow up the Superdome. You know, like you have to calculate these things and what energy is required. So infrastructure is very important, because if you run an efficient tournament, your competitive people are happy. You know, and several of the competitive people enjoy the food and drinks and stuff as well, but they want to know that they're not going to waste forever going through a process, right? They want to be efficient, competitive, and lethal. from the other competitive things, just having your shit together, I think really is a simple answer. From the casual side, as much of an experience as you can. We can't always do everything we want to do, and we've shot for the moon, hoping we would land amongst the stars, as cheesy as that sounds, but we will provide VR stations. We try to get, interesting vendors, not just, hey, buy my mouse pad, but like, hey, we're going to do a really cool case build. We're going to do this. We're going to help teach you something. We're going to introduce you to services that are in your backyard that can help you do something, or can help you take your gaming rig to the next level. The VR experiences that we have at most of our events is just a lot of fun. Sometimes people bring their whole families too. They'll bring children. We try to keep it as family friendly as possible. I'm not saying no one has never yelled an F word across the table at another competitor or something, but we make it as family friendly as we can, so that people will want to immerse themselves. We also offer a wide variety of things. So we've hosted events where I've watched in the course of a 16-hour day a Magic the Gathering tournament, a $2,000 Overwatch tournament, an $8,000 CS:GO tournament, a League of Legends tournament, and a serious board game. Oh man, I feel bad. I'm gonna get flamed for this. A board game tournament as well, all in the same day, all well executed by people who just wanted to do their own thing, right? So that's how we create that value, and that causes bleed over, right? So you have someone who's like, oh, I'm just here for Magic the Gathering, but then they see someone playing Warframe and they're like, wow, that's kind of trippy and really, really cool. And Warframe and blah, 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 and it just starts that conversation. Us trying to intermingle some of the genres, or at least put them in proximity to each other, really helps pique people's interest as well. So that's how we try to add as much value as we can. I always want to go bigger and better, right? I always want to do more and more and more. Last year was our first experiment with staging, meaning putting people on a main stage to compete in front of people. And we had 300 something people watching our CS:GO finals. It was amazing. We had bleachers set up and people were just sitting in the bleachers watching and cheering. Half of the people in the bleachers had no idea what CS:GO really was. They're like, I thought you just shot people. I didn't know the complexities of how tactical this was, right?
Uh-huh.
But they just enjoyed the experience, right? And that brought a lot of people back to us. This year we're doing 2 stages, one main stage and a secondary stage. We want to make as many people feel like they get that 15 minutes of fame as possible, because A, it's good from an organizer's perspective, because it'll get people to come back if they get that kind of good feeling. And B, from a patron's perspective, they really enjoy it. It's like, yeah, I totally won my tournament or won my bracket or whatever on the stage, surrounded by lights and curtains and cool stuff and Red Bull girls and blah, 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 right? They get into it, so it's an experience. So I think that's from the organizer's side, right? Even though that long, ridiculous answer, that's from the organizer's side. The patron side of how I get the most out of if I go to DreamHack or if I go to a KCGameOn or I go to any other event is what I want to do going in. It's okay if you don't have a plan, but me personally, I'm like, yeah, I know I want to go play Dota. I want to try to put together this kind of tournament. If nobody wants to play Dota, I want to pick up a Heroes of the Storm thing or an Overwatch thing. Or something else, right? So I kind of have some games I want to play, and then I want to just move around. Don't just sit in your seat and not talk to people. It's okay if you don't want to talk to people, because not everyone's my wife makes fun of me and calls me a social butterfly. Not everyone's as talkative as I am, but just try. Maybe just the person sitting next to you. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just doing this. Oh, cool. Just start a conversation. And you'll find yourself, doing a dozen different things that you haven't maybe experienced before. Read the rules, read what's involved in. It sounds so dumb, right? But read what's being offered at the event, because you can walk in and be like, "Ooh, shiny," and walk off to your right, and then to the left-hand side, you've completely missed out on VR and drone racing and this and this and this, right? And then after the event, you hear, whoa, you did VR and you got to play this, or you got to do this. I didn't even know that was there. Well, you didn't know it was there because you didn't explore. You didn't just read, just read what was available at the event. And everybody has that, what is it, fear of missing out thing, the FOMO or whatever. Read a little, just take 5 minutes, maybe as soon as you get there or even before you get there, to kind of look at what you're getting into, to be like, hey, if I'm going to DreamHack, like, I want to hit the pit. I definitely want to do those things. I want to see a show or listen to the DJ at least a little, and I want to talk to people just because I'm a people person. That's my goal. And it really makes me enjoy the events. If you're like, nope, I'm hardcore, I'm here for the competition, okay, know when your brackets start, know where you want to go, and you're going to get the most out of your experience, right? And when you're done, let's say you're the winner, and you're just like, woo, I just want to go, space out a little bit because I've been concentrating so hard. All right, cool, go find the free VR booth, or go buy a t-shirt to just be like, hell yeah, I won here, at this event. Like immerse yourself in an experience in one way or the other. That's the biggest advice I can give to someone coming to an event is know what you want to do a little bit, like figure out what's available to do, and then get out there, and even if you're not the most outgoing person, it's really okay. Just walk around and look at things, and you'll find yourself somewhere that you can do something fun.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, and not spending a lot of time on it, but it's worth mentioning because of the age group and the demographics that are attending these events, what you shouldn't do at these events. Like, what are some things that are probably not a good idea that'll get you thrown out or, banned or otherwise just in trouble altogether and just not cool to do that you should definitely avoid at these events?
Some should be like the kindergarten basic rules, no fighting, no screaming, no, control your behavior, basic behavioral things. I would say people around you would appreciate if you would shower and put on deodorant beforehand. And if it's like our event's going to be a multi-day event this year, shower in between every event, right? Those are some basic kind of personal things. Some other things are just, feel out the environment. Man, if there's an 8-year-old standing at the table watching you play a game and they're like, whoa, this is really cool, don't scream up and call the opponent you just beat an MFer who does this and blah, 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 like know your audience a little bit, because that can go a long way, right? It should go without saying, but you still have to say it. Don't cheat. If you're competing, if you get caught, you're going to become a laughingstock. And if you get caught and put out there publicly, you've pretty much shot yourself in the foot before you've gotten your career going, right? That it exists, but it happens. So don't cheat. If you're casual, why are you cheating anyways? It's just casual. like just play the game. Respect the people who work there, but always ask them for help. We have, like I said, we have a small army of volunteers. Like, you see one of them, you have a question, ask. Don't just throw your garbage on the floor and be like, well, I didn't know where to put it. Okay, well, if you look over there, there's a trash can. Like, go put it over there. But yeah, I would say some personal hygiene goes a long way. Don't cheat. I know in the heat of competition, it can get hot-blooded. That's okay, but don't let it go so far. Right. Control yourself a little bit. And pay attention more to the experience than just yourself. Like, there's a lot of people around you. Do you want to be that guy who causes an issue or whatever in front of, the 60 people surrounding you, or potentially the hundreds of people surrounding you?
And not to take away anything from the events, because they're super awesome, but a lot of the stuff you can do at events, like playing the video games for the most part, like aside from the VR stuff and stuff like that, you can play those video games at home. Like you can always do that. I think what's really interesting about these events is the ability to meet new people, like you had already mentioned, and network with them and create a relationship with people and make new friends and stuff like that. So if you're like, say you're super competitive and you're going in there with a mindset with a team and you want to win, you want to grow your personal brand as a professional gamer and stuff like that, how do you go about navigating an event when you know that you want to promote yourself as a professional gamer and you want to meet new people and tell them to go to your YouTube channel, you want to get an audience? Like, how do you do that without going around and being super sleazy about it? Or like, how do you go about that in a good way so that people want to pay attention to you, but not, do it in kind of a shady way?
Personality goes a long way. If you're kind of, if you're offensive, nobody wants to pay attention to you, right? I feel kind of like at a more like hours, feel free to just start talking to people. Just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, here's my stream if you're interested. And some people ignore you and some people won't. If you come across genuine, then people will genuinely listen to you, right? A lot of our events specifically, we have a table right up front where registration is, where hundreds and now thousands of people will go right by. Put a business card out on the table. Our sponsors do it. Our vendors do it. I do it for my own personal stream, just like, hey, check me out sometime. And, that's a small but very easy way to kind of introduce yourself to somebody. Just put something out there, just, on the open table. That's what we have that for. If you're playing in a casual environment, start talking to the people around you. Be like, does anybody want to play together? At our event, we have a very extensive Discord server, and we build out rooms and all kinds of things for different genres of what people are playing. It is not uncommon for us to have, hundreds plus people sitting in our PUBG Discord server talking to each other and working out what's going on with the next game or whatever that might, whatever is coming up. Well, I know some of those people. Just talk to people, and you're gonna make connections very fast. Plus, you're not going to be the only person there. You're not going to be the only professional, or you're not going to be the only person trying to broaden their brand or expose, get exposed to the people around them. That's fine. One of the best ways to generate buzz and growth is collaboration, right? So if you're a Call of Duty guy, or you're an Overwatch guy, or a League of Legends guy, or a Magic the Gathering person or whatever, like, start talking to the people connected to your community or to what you want to do, and you're just going to grow and grow and grow. That organic collaborative growth is the best way to start. It really is. Twitch flat out tells you on that platform, you don't go and try to collaborate with the guy. Like if you're a new streamer and you have 8 followers, 2 of which are your mom, and 6 of them are multiple accounts for you. Well, they tell you, you don't go to the Anthony Kong fans and say, hey, you have 500,000 followers, we should collaborate on something. They're going to ignore you because they get thousands of those requests a day, right? You find someone at your level to both grow together. You find someone that that's around your size to work with, right? I'm not going to go to DreamHack and be like, hey, you guys should get involved with KCGameOn. No, we want to grow that way, but they're bigger than us, right? Like I got to find somebody else on my level to grow organically with, to collaborate with. That's the ultimate way to grow. So if you come to this event, don't walk up to the main DJ who has 1 million Twitter followers or something and be like, hey, we should get together and do something. He's going to go, thanks. Hard to decide, But if you were talking to the other competitors, the other gamers, the other casual people, you hear people talking about what's going on, just say, hi, I'm Jay. This is what I do. Does anybody want to play together? Or would anybody like to do like a dual stream together? Or, hey, does anybody want to go on a podcast together, right? That collaborative effort is always the key to growth. So I would say be open-minded, be collaborative, and you'll be okay. But if you're just in people's face, like, take my card, no, people aren't going to want to talk to you.
Yeah, and I'll take it one step further is like with these collaborations, that's a really, really good idea. It's super smart. And I think that, if you're looking into people that you want to work with or collaborate with or do some funny videos with or do a joint Twitch stream with or something creative like that, find people that you can provide value to their audience. Like really do some research for a minute or two and find out if you can provide some value to their audience, whether it's humor or, maybe some tips or tricks about a specific game and you want to share those with their audience. Like try to find some value for their audience. I think that would be a good way to, have a mutual exchange of value, for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know that I have talked to people within our industry who are much larger than myself, and they've just flat out told me very professionally, constructively, like, you're still too small. If you check these boxes down the road, come back and talk to us. It's the truth, like, I mean, it's fine to reach for that, right? Reach for that brass ring, but you have to, from a professional standpoint, you have to add value to somebody.
Exactly. And
in some way, right? Yeah. That's just a business element.
Yeah, exactly. Like like you said, you can ask somebody with 1 million followers if you can jam with them. Most likely they're going to say no, but it doesn't hurt. It never hurts to ask, because they might just say yes. And if you do it in a respectful way and be like, hey, this would be really cool. I got this idea. Let's jam. And they're like, yeah, probably not. But, at least you asked.
Yeah, it never hurts to ask.
So, local community. You alluded to this earlier with the volunteers and what you do to produce these events. What are some ways that people listening can get involved with their local scene or their local community? Or if maybe they don't have one, how can they start that, and how do you get involved locally to grow your video game and esports scene?
If you're trying to do one specific thing, one specific game, that's fine. You're gonna find people who are passionate about that game in your area. Just start searching for it. Check Facebook. Just search, Buffalo, New York, Street Fighter V competition. Just start with simple, basic things in your area, and then go attend something and see if somebody's doing it. If there is nothing where you're at, try to start something. If you want to start something, take your time. Don't feel like, well, hey, in 2 weeks I need to hold a kick-ass LAN event with tons of people there. Start small and say, hey, I need a place to do this. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be the basement of my mom's house? Sure. Have 10 friends come over and do that, right? Start it somewhere and then grow it naturally, right? Or if you're like, hey, I have an insight with a company or something where they'll let me use office space, I can fit 100 people in there, and say, hey, we've got the space. Who's interested in doing something? And eventually you'll start to pick people up, right? Let's say you're focusing on just one game. You're like, oh, I just want to do a fighting thing. You're going to find fighting game people interested in doing that, and just say, well, I have a venue. If you're interested in coming, just show up and we'll make it happen, right? All it takes is that first step. I tell people, because I've had other people ask me, well, how do you get the ball rolling on that? Just take the first step. Baby steps are still progress. That's still moving forward. So just take the first step. Look for something in your area. Search whatever you're into in your community. Kansas City, Missouri. Buffalo, or this or whatever you're looking for, and say, oh, there already is something here. There already is a really good Magic the Gathering game shop in downtown. Well, I want to go to that shop. Go in. Hey, we do Monday Night Magic, or we do Friday Night Magic still, or we do this, or we do that. Okay, cool. Let's get into it and get involved. Or, oh, there is a LAN center in my area. It's like a 20-minute drive away or whatever. Well, I see that they're doing something significant in the next 2 weeks. Go to that event and be like, I just want to look around. I don't know anything about what you're doing. I just want to learn, right? And they're going to be flattered that you're there and say, cool, let's let's do something. And maybe you wind up working with them in the future to do something, or maybe you learn from them and you go and do your own thing for a different game, right? All I say is take that first step. Simply start with research, find out who's doing what in your area. If there's nothing in your area, then start finding how you could supply that thing to your area, to say, hey, there's got to be someone interested in playing Dota with me in this area. There has to be. Okay, where could I supply that? It's just going to be at my house. That's fine. Let's start a group and see if people are interested at all. I don't want to invite 10 strangers to my house. Find another place to go to. Just, baby steps. Just take it slow, and it will happen as long as you're consistent. Yeah,
and how have local businesses been in terms of receptiveness to what you're doing? Like, are they aware of what's going on with video games and how it's kind of exploding right now, and it's getting to that point where there's more and more people who are not familiar with it at all, finding out about it. How are these local businesses that you're working with been, and have they been pretty receptive to what you're doing and supportive?
So it's been the whole gambit of things. I've walked into, a mom and pop restaurant, and they're just like, no idea what you're talking about. Like my kid plays Xbox, and that's their response. They don't.
Right.
They have no perception of what
they're like. Over what? What are you talking about?
They have no idea. But some of them, when I get the feeling, and this is me being a businessman about it, right? When I get the feeling that they're lost with what I'm trying to demonstrate to them about esports, competent enough to change the conversation to talk about ROI. Like, here's a return on investment. If you work with us, I can put you in front of 1,000 people this weekend, and they all live here locally. It's not like they're going to leave the area and not be in your circle of business, like not be within range to spend money with you, right? When I start talking about that, and from my standpoint as an organization, I've built advertising material that I can send to people so that they can see, oh, this is what esports is. That here's numbers. Business is about money down, no matter how you boil it down, it's going to be about money. Oh, well, if I spend X amount of dollars with KCGameOn, I can get in front of this many people. That means my customer acquisition cost becomes this or not, and then they can make a more educated decision, right? So that's one angle to do it from a professional point of view. And some businesses, I see that they have an interest, but they're still not sure, right? So I'll start to explain it to them. And what I try to tell them is, I say, similar to sports, I try to, I'm a sports guy. I've enjoyed sports my whole life. So I'll try to relate to them from that, right? Hey, do you watch the Chiefs games, or do you watch this, which has been brutal lately? But do you, are you into this sport, whatever it is? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, just as you enjoy watching whatever this sport is, 1,000 people in your area who enjoy this sport, only this sport is played on a video game, right? This sport is is online. You can gain an audience from that, right? And we start talking about it. And been lucky. I've had way more receptive people to listen to my ideas and be like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah. And they kind of accept that education. I've had way more positivity come from it than negativity. But yes, I have flat out had people just tell me, I don't know what that is. So no, thank you. Just bluntly cut me off.
Yeah. How do you take your event to the next level for your patrons, the people who are attending or playing, and for you as an organization? How are you planning on leveling this up and taking it to the next level?
One of my goals is production, right? I want better stages, a more professional lighting scheme, a more, however you want to put it, a more grandiose atmosphere to it,
Gotcha.
Because that production value does translate well with people, right? It leaves a lasting impression. Like, man, I was on the main stage and they had lights everywhere and they made me feel like a star, and it was awesome. Like that, like when someone tells you that story, you're like, I got to go to the next event, right? So that's one thing I really want to work on, is our production value. I feel like we've increased it every time we've moved forward. I just want to keep it going. I just want to keep that production value moving forward. As far as adding more value besides production value, adding more value to our people, more sponsors, right? We have to get more people involved because I want to bring $10 and $15 and $20,000 tournaments to everything we devote ourselves to. I want to see, because there are some amazing Overwatch players here in Kansas City that are getting no love from anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see those people get a large platform to be like, I won $10,000 playing Overwatch in a highly competitive environment. I have seen other events where people managed to raise $10,000 and like 4 teams showed up. That's brutal. A, that's a massive loss for that organization, and B, the competition is not very good, right? You want to make it compelling in both avenues. So that's one thing we have to do to grow, and I feel like we're moving forward, right? We're still doing a good job of making additional context, and the bigger we get, because when you come to someone, hey, we're just starting up, you want to be a part of this, blah, blah, blah. Or when you come to them and you're like, hey, I've got 5,000 people ready and readier to go. How do you want to be a part of our venue? Mm-hmm. That's a different like level of conversation. So production value for me is one big thing that I'm very invested in. Sponsorships, partnerships, pushing the envelope for our competitive prize pools to make the environment more competitive and a little more exciting and interesting to our players. Something else is I really want to add more kind of free to do things. I eventually would actually really like to add the DJ or add something kind of cool that's not entirely gaming centric to the experience. I want to take away from anything else by adding that, right? I can't put a loud EDM DJ 5 feet away from a team who's trying to communicate at CSGO. I don't want to take away from anything we've built thus far to simply add a different element. So those are things we need to do to grow. And I think as long as we keep pushing forward, time will really help us as well. High recidivism rates, good word of mouth, and I think for next year, a little more marketing will help us as well. Marketing is always a double-edged sword. You got to spend money to make money, but you got to spend it intelligently, right? You can't just throw ideas at a wall and see what sticks. You gotta plan things out, and I feel like we're good at that. I just want to take it to that next step for sure.
Yeah, one idea I had is I'm in cybersecurity or information security, and one thing that is really popular amongst the security community is something called Hacker Village or Hacking Village or Lockpicking Village. And it's the idea that you have these locks on a table and you bring somebody in that teaches you how to pick the locks. And stuff like that I think is really interesting if you're able to find things that your demographic would also be interested in. Like a lot of gamers are also into computers and technology and stuff like that. So there's different avenues that you can do. And I really like that you guys are thinking about those things because it all adds to the experience like you were talking about. And I think that's a really great idea to help you grow the event and help people understand that, this is not only going to be about video games in the long run, it's going to be a larger community kind of thing where you get a bunch of different people together and talk about video games and all sorts of other stuff too, and technology and all sorts of other cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. A brief example of exactly that is like Comic-Con, right? Yeah. It started out straight up just comic books. And now it's like huge panels of people talking to celebrities and doing all these things and meet and greets. And, it's so much more than just comic books. That's where we're at. It's where we're currently at, just comic books and a little bit more, and I want to get to that next level where it's everything. It's an experience. It's a social gaming experience more so than just come kill your buddy, that kind of thing. I want it to be that next thing, and I feel like we're on our way. And with time and organization, we're definitely going to get there.
So finally, the esports industry, right? So, what do you think, from your perspective, and what you've done and over your career, and doing a lot of different things from Dota 1 and running your own businesses and stuff like that, from an industry perspective, what do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful?
Couple of marquee titles. I think those are already out there. I really do. Communities need to be supported around some of those titles. I like OWL right now, Overwatch League, right? There is so much. It seems like there's so much black and white in the community of no, that's going to fail, or no, it's the greatest thing ever. Instead of enough voices in the middle saying, no, it's a very good idea being run by a very competent company, Blizzard. These things just need to be accomplished, right? Once that happens, continue and continue and continue. The other thing for esports is I don't see the growth of esports slowing down. I can see it kind of reaching a plateau a little bit, like not growing as fast as it is exponentially right now. It'll become more steady growth than exponential growth. It's going to have to take acceptance and time. You know, more and more journalists are phasing out of a different generation, and now you're having journalists come up with with esports backgrounds. You're having more media and marketing experts come up with esports backgrounds. You're having more and more people come from the professional athletics side over to esports to say this is a viable market. And the more that happens over time, the more socially acceptable it'll become. It's happened, but I do know that for the 2020 Olympics, they're trying to get esports put into it. The Olympic Committee isn't really pushing back on it. Like, it's becoming an accepted ideal for competition, right? It doesn't just have to be about an athletic endeavor, even though I consider professional esports very athletic. It stimulates your brain and requires so much of you. It's a very athletic thing to accomplish. But the Olympics will be a huge deal. I think we will see a giant shift after that happens. I really do, because people will be watching this going, what is this? Like, I just watched pole vaulting, and now I'm watching kids destroy each other in a video game. And then their children are going to be seeing that, like, yeah, I play that game. Oh, yeah, I can relate to this. Or I know exactly what just happened, I remember trying to educate my my brother and my friends and stuff when I played professional games, 14 years ago. They're like, well, what do you do? I was like, well, I practice. I work with my team. They're like, how do you practice at a video game? And I had to explain that to them. Well, as that happens at a more mainstream level, just over time, it's going to erode away those old stereotypes about video games and that old stigma of, oh, that's not a sport. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. TBS buys into E-League. ESPN is starting to devote more and more prime time from ESPN2 into it. ESPN, as you know, has their own esports division, and it's growing and growing and growing. ESPN as an organization just laid off 160 plus people, none of which were from the esports space that I'm aware of. Like, they're taking their esports environment very seriously, and it's just going to take a little more time, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's a super exciting time to be getting into this and learning about esports and learning about the industry and the games and in the leagues and the tournaments and everything. Like, it's just a super exciting time to be a part of it. And if you love games at all, or you love video games at all, and you're in the Kansas City area, definitely go check out the KCGameOn. We'll make sure we link up everything in the show notes and everything. We'll hit up your Twitch channel in the show notes, and it's at KCGameOn on Twitch, and you can check Jay out at DYT Network on Twitter. I meant Twitter, not Twitch. It's at KCGameOn on Twitter. And we'll make sure we'll link up the correct things in the show notes. Don't take my exact verbal words for it, but we'll link those up. But it's just a super exciting time. And one last thing is I wanted to ask you in the beginning, but I got into the questions and we were just having a good cadence going, and I didn't want to mess with that. What do you do specifically for the event? Like, you're a streaming and VIP director, so what do you do? Are you an everything man, or like, what do you do to help the event?
So a little bit of everything. We all have to contribute a little bit to everything. Some of us are better in some areas than others. I am not the technical guy when it comes to electrical and engineering and stuff like that. That's Jason's forte, right? But I know how to do streaming builds. I also come from a perspective of having been a professional gamer. And I'm kind of social, right? I enjoy talking to people. So I interact a lot with our VIPs who come through, our pro gamers, people who come in and do guest spots for us to do guest streaming and things like that. And I just try to, kind of help them get going and whatever they need to do, and then get them set up to have a positive experience, right? And then once I feel like I've fulfilled my main role, like at our smaller events, I run all of our streams. Like I'll run 5 or 6 different streams at one time. And I do that kind of like from this command center type of desk, this big like crescent shaped desk.
Mega desk.
I've got yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've got this giant, I've got a giant tower PC and I have a laptop, a multimedia laptop that weighs every bit of like 9 or 10 pounds. It's huge, big 17-inch screen. I'm running stuff from it, from the desktop, and from other working laptops that are filtering tournament stuff for me and everything. And I'm trying to put overlays together and capture multiple streams and stuff like that. That's kind of my core function, is production and stream. I want to get better at that stuff. I feel like I do okay, but I want to get to the next level with it. And then once those things are satisfied, or like when we're not in a core event, I try to talk to as many people as I can. I try to help with marketing the best I can. I don't have a marketing degree or something, but I try to understand that side of the business and really pay attention to it. I also try to be, a cheerleader or whatever you want to call it for KCGameOn, to educate as many people as I can about esports and about our event and about how we could work together, things like that. So I do a little bit of everything, but my core focus is probably streaming, production, and then personnel, like those pro gamers that come through, anybody we can liaison with to have a video game type of partnership or a collaboration with, anything like that. That's probably my primary focus, is what I would say.
Awesome. It was super awesome to have you. And again, if you're a gamer, or if you're listening to this and you're not into the competitiveness, which I'm not sure why you would be listening to this if you were in the competitive side of things, but let's say you're not, whatever you're into, if you're into video games at all, or even if you're not, go check out a local event in your area, or if you're in the area for KCGameOn, go check it out. I think it's a really, really good thing to do to support your local esports and your video game community. Find out what's going on in your area and, be a part of it if that's something that you're into. And Jay, super appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of awesome stuff. I definitely want to have you on again to talk more details about some things and maybe put some more detail into some of these specific topics to help people kind of market their event, or how to grow your local scene and stuff like that. And I think that would be really helpful for people. And I really appreciate you taking some time out for us tonight.
And I would love to come back and visit. I like talking.
Awesome. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that if this all goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Hey guys, real quick before you go, I just want to say thanks for listening and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me that you like it, and I hope that if you found some value from this podcast, that you'll share it on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, anywhere that you have a social media presence. I would love it if you would just share it with 3 to 4 people that might be interested in it. It would absolutely mean the world to me. It would help me get my name out there, help me get the podcast out there. I do this solely for the love of esports and for the love of getting to know people and hearing the stories of esports that I think are so awesome. So please, if you got value from this, if you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you think might like it. And with that, I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it.